Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're completely redefining how we introduce ourselves. I mean, think about it. We're so used to giving the totally standard textbook version of our lives, right? We state our name, we drop our job title, and we just move on. Honestly, it sometimes sounds a bit like we're just reading off a corporate resume. But the source material we're looking at today offers this incredibly fascinating alternative. It's going to guide us through peeling back the actual layers of who we truly are. So right out of the gate, our source throws a massive curveball at us. Who are you beyond your title? Just imagine you're walking into a room full of strangers. Now, what if you literally couldn't say what you did for a living? You can't rely on that job title at all. What would you actually say? How would you articulate the real core of your identity? It's a wonderfully challenging question, and honestly, it sets the perfect stage for what we're going to explore today.
All right, let's hit section 1, Beyond the Surface.
So let's start peeling back those layers. The speaker in our source material, Tiana, kicks things off by sharing the meaning behind her given name. Her parents say it's of Aztec origin, meaning the most beautiful flower. And yeah, that is absolutely beautiful. But she immediately points out something super important. This surface-level fact isn't her whole story. A name is really just a label we get handed the second we're born, right? It doesn't even come close to capturing the messy, complex texture of the life we actually live underneath it.
Because, identity goes way, way beyond the name on a birth certificate. It's actually shaped so much by the literal physical geography of our lives. To show just how incredibly fast life can change and change us, Tiana shares this really pivotal, sudden relocation she went through. She was born in Nebraska, but at just 8 years old, her father was deported to Mexico. Just like that, her entire world was flipped upside down. She points out that this incredibly jarring shift taught her some profound lessons in loss, but also in adaptation and resilience. It basically proved that humans are amazingly capable of adapting when the ground just totally shifts beneath our feet.
So let's apply this to you for a second. What specific experience, or maybe what place in the world forced you to grow up faster and taught you who you really are? If you had to introduce yourself using only those rapid, ground-shifting moments, instead of just locations on a map, what would your timeline look like?
Moving on to section 2, Lessons Outside the Classroom. Here we're looking at how the world itself is often our most demanding teacher. The big takeaway is that true education doesn't just happen sitting inside a stuffy lecture hall. No, it happens in late-night conversations, in messing up, making mistakes, and just having this insatiable curiosity about the world. Tiana actually notes that while she picked up the basics of English and Spanish in a bilingual school, her real education, that came from life. She totally skipped the traditional university route, and instead, she leaned hard into traveling, navigating new cultures, failing, trying again, and basically constantly pushing herself out of her comfort zone.
And she anchors this whole lesson in empathy with a super specific, really touching memory from that sudden move to Mexico. She remembers watching her sister, who literally didn't know a single word of Spanish at the time, walking into a brand new Mexican middle school. I mean, middle school is brutal enough as it is, right? But imagine slapping a massive language barrier on top of that, where you can't even communicate with the kids sitting next to you. Witnessing her sister's immense courage and struggle became this huge, real-world lesson in empathy for Tiana, something no textbook is ever going to teach you.
This leads to a really brilliant emotional pivot she learned out there in the real world, taking judgment and envy and completely flipping them into actionable inspiration. Instead of just sitting there feeling jealous, she came up with this 3-step process. First, she just notices when she's judging or envying someone. Simple enough. But second, she makes a conscious choice to feel inspired by them instead. And third, and this is the real game changer, she realizes that her judgment is actually a giant neon sign from her own mind and body telling her what she's lacking. So she takes action to give her life what it needs. That is a literal masterclass in emotional intelligence.
So, turning the mirror back to you again. What's something you've learned about yourself outside of the classroom? Do you thrive on structure and books, or do you learn best through the wild unpredictability of life?
Okay, section 3, Purpose Beyond the Title. As we build our career identities, we really need to separate our daily tasks from our true underlying impact. So Tiana's official surface-level job title is English teacher, but she totally deconstructs that label. She doesn't just see herself as someone teaching grammar rules on a whiteboard. She actually considers herself a creator of safe spaces. Her real, true job is making people feel completely safe using their voice and helping them feel far less afraid of being misunderstood.
And what's really amazing is how fiercely protective she is of her students. She is on an absolute mission to tune out the haters and completely destroy the shameful stigma that surrounds having an accent when you're learning a new language. She calls out how frustrating it is when people pretend they can't understand someone just because of an accent. Her true purpose?
reminding learners that attempting a whole new language is incredibly brave. It takes guts, and they absolutely deserve patience, kindness, and pride, not judgments. So ask yourself this: what do you really do beyond your title? Strip away the official job description. What problem do you actually solve for the people around you? And what specific energy do you bring into a room? That right there, that is your true introduction.
Which brings us to Section 4, How Language Shapes Identity.
Let's dive into the fascinating concept of the multilingual mind. Tiana explains that learning new words literally shapes our inner world. She speaks English, she speaks Spanish, and she's actively learning Chinese. And the big point she makes is that this isn't just about memorizing vocabulary. She says navigating these distinct languages has fundamentally changed how she thinks, how she processes emotion, and how she connects with people. Language isn't just a communication tool, it is literally the lens through which we view everything.
Which leads us to this incredibly cool idea of the split personality that happens when you're bilingual. She notes that learning a new language basically unlocks a totally distinct, new version of who you are. She feels like she has one distinct personality when she speaks English and a completely different one when she speaks Spanish. It's like every new language you learn invites a brand new version of yourself right up to the surface. How cool is that?
Think about how you communicate. Which language, or even which style of communication feels like home to you? And which one really pushes you into a zone of growth?
Finally, Section 5, Finding Your Authentic Self.
Let's zoom all the way out for a second and look at our quiet core. Connecting with yourself isn't always about these massive, grand adventures or totally uprooting your life. Sometimes, it's just about the wonderfully small acts. It's biking through a city when there's no traffic. It's walking down the street with your headphones on, playing your absolute favorite song. It's stopping to check out a small local market. It's about intentionally embracing those quiet moments to force yourself to just slow down. Because getting to know who you really are, that almost always happens in the stillness. And that brings us to a beautiful and honestly vital final reframe from our source material. We need to shift our mindset from being super productive all the time to living a meaningful life. Tiana reminds us, and this is so important, that your life absolutely does not need to be an endless, exhausting sprint of productivity in order to be deeply meaningful. She travels and she learns, not to escape her life, but to understand herself better. Meaning is found in our connections, not just in our output.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. You don't need the perfect answer right this second, but really ask yourself, what is the activity that makes time completely disappear for you? When the world gets way too loud, how do you get back to your most authentic self? Because honestly, finding that answer might just change the way you introduce yourself forever. All right, thank you so much for diving into the layers of identity with us today. Keep peeling back those layers, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.